Greetings! In this video I'll be painting a first company veteran of the Fulminators Chapter. For this model I've used the arms from the Intercessor's kit, but the body's printed. Some information about that's in the video description. Like usual, I've embossed the chapter armorial onto the pauldron here, and after assembly I primed the model black through my airbrush. This scheme is very similar to the Ultramarines, and I'd usually spray Macragge blue over the entire model before starting, but I've decided to show you how you can do it with a brush just as easily. It does take a little bit more time though. If you want a smooth coverage, a few thin coats goes a long way. After the blue was done, I painted the white on the pauldrons with Ulthuan grey. As I'm painting a first company veteran, I decided to paint the pauldron trim and helmet white, as well as the reactor casing on the power pack, and the knee with a sculpted skull, just for some additional flair. Switching over to Abaddon black, I painted in the undersuit, the weapon casing, and any little areas where the little nodules stick out from, like the back of the legs and on the wrist. Next, as he's got a tabard of sorts, I use Zandri dust to base coat that in. Onto the leather for now, using my usual recipe of Rhinox hide as the base coat, followed by Skrag brown as a highlight, doing some scratches around the edges and on flat surfaces to help break it up. Deathclaw brown was used to finish the leather, doing smaller chips and dots to emphasise edges or other details. Moving back to the cloth now, I used Ushabti bone and layered up some flowing lines to help give the otherwise fairly flat piece of cloth more detail. The back of this bit also receives some attention, though it's not so easy to reach. Some final highlights were applied with Screaming Skull, though the camera doesn't seem to show these very well. Now onto some cleanup. I switched back to Macragge blue and cleaned up around the cloth on the greave, then around the up armoured pauldron where I went over a bit earlier with the Ulthuan grey. I also used some Abaddon black to clean up the undersuit where I'd painted on some brown by mistake. Then painted in the wings on the armorial design. The Fulminators armorial references the storms that Mars experienced during the creation of this chapter, during the early stages of the Primaris project in M31. Now onto some gloss varnish, applied over a bunch of different spots so I could go ham with the decals. I definitely went overboard, with some of the decals from the Tyrannic War decal sheet and other campaign or veteran markings. Now, going back to that armorial, I used Mephiston red to paint in the lightning bolt, followed by the cable under the pauldron, and then all the lenses on the wrist, the weapon scope, the helmet, and even the little gem that hangs from the chain around his belt. I highlighted all of these surfaces with Evil Sunz Scarlet, trying to match the brightness on the decal that's on his back. Wild Rider Red followed, this time only on the lenses and the gem. trying to go for a smaller area to indicate reflections. Finally, Lugganath Orange was applied as a small dot on each of these lenses and towards the top of the gem to further accentuate the glow. Now onto the metallics. I used Iron Warriors here, painting in the bolt rifle casing, as well as details around the armour, like the molecular bonding studs and the power pack details. I briefly went back to Macragge Blue to clean up this little bit on his left arm, before switching to Retributor armour and painting in the gold details. Only the Imperialis and the additional filigree were painted gold for this guy. The pauldron trim I left white to represent the First Company. Onto Runefang steel now, to highlight the silver details and to paint in the little tiny rivets around the model. Now to finally highlight the armour itself, as well as painting in some battle damage at the same time. I used Calgar blue for this, edge highlighting a bunch of panel edges and also doing a bunch of little scratches and cuts. This can be a bit messier than you may think, because the next colour will make use of those larger splotches. Now for Rhinox hide, which I used to dot in some larger chips inside the previous blue chips, or paint little scratches along the existing scratches to add some depth. This goes over the white perfectly as well too, as long as you keep a nice sharp brush point. Now we're finally onto the enamel wash. I used the Sepia Paneliner for AK Interactive this time. This was applied pretty much all over the entire model, avoiding pooling but otherwise giving the entire model a nice coat. This helps warm up the blue and can also stain surfaces to imply a dusty environment, but it's mostly used to add depth to the panel recesses. After leaving it to dry for a few hours, I applied my usual basing method, painted the base rim, and then sealed everything in with an ultramatte varnish. And here we have it! A Veteran Intercessor from the Fulminators First Company. I think this is probably the best paint job I've done on the channel, maybe ever really. There's issues of course, but you can always find some. But man, I'm super pleased with this model. It was looking rough for a while, but the final touches sealed this in as something I'm truly proud of. The gold, despite just being Retributor armour and the sepia enamel pin wash, looks really satisfying, like it's been cleaned and weathered repeatedly, whilst the armour itself is battered but not broken. The result of this finish makes me believe that this Marine is truly a veteran, even if you ignore the numerous honours displayed on his armour. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you stick around for the next one.